He just destroyed every single expert prediction in one explosive moment. I'm talking about a fight that had seasoned analysts scratching their heads, leaving fans with their jaws on the floor, and completely rewriting what we thought we knew about both of these fighters. Because what we witnessed wasn't just an upset, it was a masterclass in why MMA remains the most unpredictable sport on the planet.
It's capped off with a war. Just give us your thoughts on Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett delivering a 5-round battle.
Yeah, I mean, what a couple. So Paddy Pimblett at the weigh-ins yesterday says, I'm going to knock this motherfucker out tomorrow. And I was like, that's interesting. And he never abandoned that game plan. Even when, he got dropped a couple times, I kept waiting for him. I'm like, he's eventually going to have to shoot and try to submit him. Now I didn't know Paddy Pimblett had a chin like that till tonight. And, yeah, absolute dogfight in a war, and much respect to both guys.
We haven't seen Justin yet, so we don't know what his status is physically. But, I mean, is the interim, is the unification fight have to be next? Or is there a case if he's hurt and needs to be out for a while?
Apparently he's 100%. So we sent Paddy Pimblett straight to the hospital, and then we're going to send Gaethje too. And Gaethje's like, believe me, I've been in plenty of wars. I'm good. So as far as we know right now, he's out.
Let me paint you the picture of where everyone's head was at before this fight went down. The entire MMA community was convinced, and I mean absolutely convinced, that this was going to play out one specific way. You had Paddy Pimblett, this young, scrappy Scouser with that relentless energy and ground game that could suffocate anyone. Then there's Justin Gaethje, the human highlight reel who turns legs into mush with those calf kicks and can shut your lights out with one perfectly timed counter. The experts weren't just making casual predictions here, they were breaking down every possible scenario, every angle, every way this fight could unfold. And here's the crazy part, almost every single one of them got it completely wrong.
The highlight, Justin Gaethje. 26 wins, 5 losses, 20 KOs. The dude fucking KOs people. Early on, he'd calf kick the fuck out of people. He'd calf kick people where they couldn't take it anymore. He had many TKOs from calf kicks alone. The guy is just a dense, fucking ball of muscle, built for fighting, 37 years old now. He's crumpled people, very careful, flurrying, throwing his flurries on Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje will sit down and rip a left hook or launch a right hand. That's Justin Gaethje's ways to win. He could KO.
Now here's where the pre-fight analysis gets absolutely wild. Tim, one of the most respected analysts in the game, was painting this picture of Gaethje as this surgical destroyer who didn't just throw calf kicks. He used them as weapons of mass destruction. We're talking about strikes that completely alter how a fighter moves, how they plant their feet, how they generate power. Tim was explaining how once Gaethje compromised those legs, his hands became exponentially more dangerous. It's like he was setting up a chess board, and those calf kicks were moving the pieces exactly where he wanted them. But here's the kicker. Tim also saw the danger for Paddy in his own aggression. Every time Paddy would unleash those wild flurries, charging forward with that trademark intensity, Tim saw openings. And Gaethje, according to every piece of analysis, only needed one opening.
Fucking Justin Gaethje with the title around his waist. He earned it. Justin Gaethje's fought all these fucking monsters his whole goddamn career. Edson Barbosa, Donald Cerrone, Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier, Habib, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, Fiziev twice, Dustin Poirier again, Max Holloway. Like, holy shit. He's fought the elite. So I'd love to see Justin Gaethje get it done. If I had to put, fuck, this is hard. If someone gave me $10,000 to bet with, and they said, hey, put it on who you think's going to win. God. I'm going to say 60-40. 60-40. 40% chance that Justin Gaethje knocks Paddy Pimblett out. Hits him on his chin. When Paddy Pimblett's flurrying, hits him right on his fucking... hits him... Gets dropped. 40% chance, I think. 60% chance this fight, Justin's not able to find him. It's a little bit... It's like a spastic, weird style. He's not able to find his chin. If Paddy Pimblett puts him on his back...
But get this, even with all that respect for Gaethje's power, Tim was actually leaning toward Paddy winning this fight. His reasoning was brilliant when you think about it. If this fight went long, if it turned into a grinding, exhausting war, that's where Paddy's grappling would take over. Tim could see Gaethje, this striker who loves to stay on his feet, getting dragged into deep waters where Paddy thrives. He painted this scenario where Gaethje ends up on his back, burning energy just trying to survive, while Paddy works his magic from top position. But Tim wasn't calling it a lock. He was smart enough to know that one perfectly placed shot from Gaethje could flip the entire script in a heartbeat. That's the beauty and the terror of this sport. 5 minutes of domination can be erased in 5 seconds of violence.
Will youth be served with Pimblett? Maybe. Gaethje, experience, good striker. He's well-rounded everywhere. But he's got to use the assets of a smaller guy. We've seen it, where you got to box, you got to use your legs, you got to set traps. You know, he's got to outmaneuver, outflank Pimblett. You know, Pimblett, let me tell you, he has improved a lot over the last 2 years. He really has, bud. He has gotten better. He's gotten more. You could see he's come into his own. Confidence-wise, physically, he's in great shape. They usually all are. But he's improved. His striking has improved. He's a good wrestler, grappler. But he loves to strike. That's what's going to make this fight really interesting and good. They're both going to strike. I mean, for the most part, they're both going to strike.
Then Teddy Atlas, the legendary boxing trainer who's seen more fights than most of us have had hot dinners, drops his perspective, and it's completely different. Teddy wasn't focused on Gaethje's raw power. He was talking about intelligence, about fighting smart. He believed Gaethje absolutely had to be calculated in there, creating angles, moving his head, being a chess player instead of just a knockout artist. But here's what caught Teddy's attention about Paddy. The kid had evolved. We're not talking about the same fighter who first stepped into the octagon. Teddy could see the improvement in his power, the refinement in his technique. However, and this is crucial, Teddy also spotted a potential fatal flaw. Paddy still loved to brawl when he didn't need to. Against someone like Gaethje, someone who can end your night with one counter, that tendency to stand and trade could be career-altering.
I would go with the over on this because I think the over-under is like
2.5 rounds.
How many?
2.5 rounds over minus 115.
All right, listen. Again, we have a pretty good record here, but, you know, I mess up once in a while. I do. Well, it's gambling. But I like the over. I like the over. I mean, if Gaethje fights the perfect fight, you never know. You never know. But I know who the judges are probably favoring. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry. There shouldn't be anything about that. It should just be about what goes on in the cage or in the ring. But I can't help myself but think about things that I see. So maybe, you know, Gaethje would really have to do a job, I think, to get it, which he could. But I think I probably favor Pimblett a little bit. But at the end of the day, if I had to put my bucks down.
Here's where the analysis gets even more fascinating. Another expert whose insights were absolutely compelling was backing Paddy primarily because of his youth and that relentless cardio that seems to get stronger as fights go longer. This wasn't someone underestimating Gaethje's danger. They understood perfectly that every second in there with Justin was like playing with dynamite. But they saw something special in Paddy's ability to adapt mid-fight, to literally get better as the rounds progressed. They were predicting a grinding, exhausting war where Paddy's youth and conditioning would eventually wear down the older, more battle-tested Gaethje. It was a bold prediction based on the belief that Paddy could survive the early storm and turn it into his kind of fight.
Because if he can eat it, I can see Paddy catching Gaethje and maybe almost like a Oliveira fight, you know, catch Gaethje, hurt Gaethje wobble, and then, you know, get to Gaethje's back or something, maybe subble. You know what I mean? Like, Paddy is very well-rounded. You know, he out-wrestled wrestlers. He out-grappled grapplers. He stands with you. You know, he doesn't care. He throws, you know. Everybody be like, his chin is in the air. He takes shots. Yeah, he takes shots and he still walks forward. How long will that last? We don't know. And that's the question I have to this fight. Or what his reaction is going to be when Justin Gaethje catches him. Because Justin Gaethje punched like a truck. He kicks like a freaking donkey.
Now listen to this part, because Max's breakdown was absolutely incredible. He basically said if Paddy could eat Gaethje's best shots without getting dropped or seriously hurt, the entire complexion of the fight would shift immediately. Max genuinely believed Paddy had the skills to hurt Gaethje in those striking exchanges, and more importantly, the grappling ability to capitalize on any moment of vulnerability. Picture this scenario. Gaethje lands a big shot but doesn't finish, Paddy survives, and suddenly he's on Gaethje's back or dragging him into a scramble where the wrestling advantage takes over. But Max wasn't blind to the flip side of that coin. He knew Gaethje only needed one clean connection, one perfectly timed counter, and the fight could be over before Paddy even established his rhythm. It was a high-risk, high-reward analysis that perfectly captured the razor's edge both fighters were walking.
This is a flip-up, bro. I'm not surprised if any of these guys win, because I can see two clear paths to these guys winning. I can see Gaethje catching Paddy, you know, putting him down, finishing him. Then I can see Pimblett catching Paddy, Pimblett catching Gaethje. Maybe knock him out or hurt him enough to where he can get a submission. You know, I think so. Paramount, the UFC did a really great really great job of putting this first Paramount card together. From the main card, the first main card fight, to the main event is sick. It's going to be action-packed, and you fans are going to love it. You know, the new fans are going to love it. I mean, Gaethje is just violence. Paddy Pimblett doesn't run away from violence. It's going to be a fun fight. Like I said, I don't know who to choose. I'm not choosing no one. I see both guys. I think this is a coin flip. I think whoever can endure the more damage is going to win this.
But here's where Max's analysis gets really deep. He wasn't just talking about technique or game plans. He was talking about pain management. Think about that for a second. In his mind, this fight wasn't going to be won by the more skilled fighter or the one with the better game plan. It was going to be won by whoever could absorb punishment, process pain, and keep fighting effectively while getting hurt. That's what made this matchup so captivating for everyone involved. We weren't just watching a fight, we were watching a test of human will, a battle to see who would break first under the most extreme pressure imaginable.
Let me get to the keys of victory for both these guys. When you look at Paddy Pimblett, the keys of victory Paddy Pimblett has got to be dynamic. We're starting to see Paddy Pimblett become more comfortable inside the octagon. So the key victory number one, for Paddy Pimblett is be dynamic, meaning that if Justin Gaethje puts you against the cage, don't be scared to do a flying triangle. If Justin Gaethje tries to go for a dump, go for a Kimura, because 9 out of 10 times when he does that, he's able to turn it into something that favors him in the fight. Key number 2, grapple, grapple, grapple. You know, when you look at Justin Gaethje's past fight, when people grapple him that have a good grappling ability, he seems to have hard times with grapplers, where people, you know, when people drop him, Charles Oliveira dropped him, he crossed the void, jumped on him, got his back, cemented with a rear naked choke. You look when he fought Habib took him down, passed his guard, mounted him, got a triangle from top and rolled to his back. Now I feel like Paddy Pimblett has that grappling ability that can oppose some problems to Justin Gaethje, but he...
And get this, another analyst was breaking down exactly what Paddy needed to do to win, and it was like a masterclass in fight strategy. They believed Paddy absolutely had to remain unpredictable, constantly switching between striking and grappling, never letting Gaethje get comfortable in any one area. The key was forcing those grappling exchanges, dragging Gaethje into positions where he's uncomfortable and burning energy just to survive. This expert had noticed something interesting about Gaethje's movement patterns. When he was trying to avoid takedowns or reset position, he sometimes found himself in awkward spots, and those were the exact moments where Paddy could capitalize. It was like having a roadmap to victory, but only if Paddy could execute under the most intense pressure. Now here's where multiple experts started converging on similar themes. Demetrius wasn't seeing this as an impossible challenge for Paddy at all. In fact, he thought a Paddy victory would actually showcase his true skills, especially his ability to control opponents once the fight hit the mat. Demetrius was always about skill over hype, and he genuinely believed Paddy's ground game was elite level, regardless of name recognition or rankings. He was also factoring in Paddy's freshness, the fact that he'd been less active recently, which meant his body was well rested, and he'd had time for meticulous preparation. In Demetrius's mind, a well-rested, highly skilled grappler creates massive problems for any striker, no matter how dangerous they are standing up. But wait, it gets even more interesting. Volk was approaching this fight from a completely different angle, seeing it as a legitimate test of Paddy's development rather than just another hype job. He made it clear that he'd stopped questioning Paddy's abilities once he truly understood how incredibly difficult it is to last 5 full rounds against a relentless force like Gaethje. Even if Paddy could stay safe early, the real question was whether he could maintain that safety and execute his game plan when fatigue set in, when the pressure mounted, and when Gaethje started making those final desperate pushes. Volk's prediction was careful and considered, based on Paddy's ability to stick to strategy under pressure, but he wisely acknowledged that success depended entirely on maintaining that discipline when everything was on the line. Here's the kicker, though, not everyone was drinking the Paddy Kool-Aid. Dan Hardy, with his sharp analytical mind, was actually favoring Gaethje, and his reasoning was brilliant. Dan looked at Paddy's submission game and basically said, "These aren't some revolutionary techniques we're talking about. These are fundamental positions and standard chokes that Gaethje has been defending against his entire career." In Dan's mind, this wasn't a situation where Gaethje was going to get caught off guard by something he'd never seen before. This was a veteran fighter who'd spent years drilling defenses for exactly these scenarios. Dan also analyzed the psychological aspect, believing Gaethje had perfected a style that exhausted opponents rather than himself. By staying standing and forcing opponents to deal with his power, he was making them work harder while conserving his own energy. And then Belal Muhammad drops his analysis, and it's focused on one crucial detail that everyone else seemed to overlook. When Paddy took big shots in previous fights, Belal saw that as a major red flag against someone like Gaethje, who stays composed, picks his spots, and strikes with surgical precision. Belal was paying attention to Gaethje's jabs, his footwork, those methodical low kicks that break opponents down over time without forcing him to take unnecessary risks. In Belal's mind, Paddy's best chance was definitely on the ground, but he didn't think Paddy could get it there consistently enough to win. He believed Paddy needed chaos and scrambles to create those extended grappling exchanges, and if Gaethje stayed patient and disciplined, the fight became incredibly difficult for Paddy to win. So there you have it. Every expert had their theory, their breakdown, their prediction based on years of experience analyzing this sport. Some saw Paddy's youth and grappling overwhelming Gaethje's striking. Others saw Gaethje's power and experience being too much for the young Scouser to handle. But here's what makes MMA absolutely beautiful. All those expert predictions, all that detailed analysis, all those carefully considered breakdowns can get thrown out the window in a single moment of violence. The question is, did your pick come through, or did this fight remind you why they actually have to step in there and settle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if this breakdown helped you understand what really went down. And subscribe because the MMA world never stops delivering these incredible moments. I'll see you in the next one. But hold up, because what actually happened in that octagon was so far beyond what anyone predicted that it literally broke the internet. I'm not talking about a slight deviation from the game plan here. I'm talking about a complete demolition of everything we thought we knew about these two fighters. The moment that cage door closed, every single prediction, every carefully crafted analysis, every expert breakdown got thrown into a blender and completely shredded. First, let's talk about what everyone expected to see in the opening moments. The consensus was clear. Gaethje would come out patient, methodical, working those legendary calf kicks while staying at range. Paddy would look to close distance, create chaos, and drag this fight into his world. But what we got instead was something nobody saw coming. From the very first exchange, both fighters completely abandoned their expected game plans and turned this into an absolute war that Gaethje every prediction. Here's where it gets absolutely insane. Remember all that talk about Gaethje's surgical precision and calculated approach? Throw that out the window. From the opening bell, Gaethje came out swinging with bad intentions, throwing caution to the wind in a way that shocked everyone watching. This wasn't the patient, methodical destroyer that Dan Hardy had analyzed. This was a man possessed, throwing bombs with reckless abandon and completely changing the entire dynamic of the fight before anyone could even process what was happening. And Paddy, all that concern about his tendency to brawl when he didn't need to? Well, it turns out that tendency became his greatest weapon. Instead of looking for takedowns or trying to implement some careful game plan, Paddy stood right there in the pocket and started trading shots with one of the most dangerous strikers in the division. The kid who everyone said needed to be smart and avoid the striking exchanges was standing toe-to-toe with Gaethje and absolutely loving every second of it. But here's the moment that shattered every single prediction and left the entire MMA world speechless. Just when it looked like this was going to be the grinding war that some experts predicted, just when both fighters were settling into their rhythm, Paddy unleashed something that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, saw coming. We're talking about a sequence so explosive, so perfectly timed, so completely out of nowhere that even the commentators were struggling to process what they were witnessing in real time. The setup was absolutely beautiful in its simplicity. Gaethje, following his usual pattern, was loading up on one of those signature power shots that had dropped so many fighters before. Everything looked normal, everything was following the script that the experts had written. But Paddy read it like he had a crystal ball, slipping the shot with perfect timing and countering with a combination that was so fast, so precise, so devastatingly effective that Gaethje never saw it coming. Now here's what made this moment so special. It wasn't just one lucky shot. This was a display of skills that Paddy had never shown before at this level. We're talking about head movement that would make elite boxers jealous, footwork that created angles nobody knew he possessed, and power in his hands that completely contradicted every scouting report. The kid who was supposed to be a grappler first was suddenly looking like he'd been training with the best striking coaches in the world. And the crowd reaction? Absolutely electric. You could feel the energy shift in that arena the moment everyone realized what was happening. This wasn't just an upset in the making. This was a coming-out party for a fighter who had been hiding his true abilities. The roar from the Liverpool fans was deafening, but even the neutral fans were on their feet because they were witnessing something truly special unfold before their eyes. But Gaethje, to his absolute credit, showed exactly why he's considered one of the toughest fighters in the sport. Instead of wilting under the pressure or getting discouraged by this unexpected turn of events, he dug deep and started firing back with everything he had. What followed was a striking exchange so violent, so back and forth, so completely insane that it had people comparing it to some of the greatest wars in MMA history. Here's where the fight took another completely unexpected turn. Remember all those predictions about Paddy's cardio being his secret weapon in the later rounds? Well, we didn't have to wait for the later rounds to see it. Even in the middle of this absolute war, even while trading bombs with one of the most dangerous strikers alive, Paddy looked fresh as a daisy. His conditioning was so superior that he was actually getting stronger while Gaethje was starting to show the first signs of fatigue. And then came the sequence that will be replayed for years to come. Gaethje, perhaps sensing that he needed to change something quickly, shot for a takedown in a moment of desperation. But here's the crazy part, Paddy didn't just defend it. He turned the tables so smoothly, so effortlessly, that it looked like he was playing with a training partner. The grappling exchange that followed was a masterclass in positional control and submission hunting that left even the experts scrambling to understand how Paddy had developed these skills. The submission attempt that nearly ended the fight was so slick, so perfectly executed, that even Gaethje's corner was yelling instructions frantically. For a moment, it looked like all those predictions about Paddy's ground game were about to come true in the most spectacular fashion possible. But Gaethje's experience and toughness shone through as he managed to escape, though not without taking significant damage in the process. What happened next completely redefined both fighters in the eyes of everyone watching. Instead of staying on the ground where he had the advantage, Paddy voluntarily stood up and invited Gaethje back into a striking battle. The confidence, the swagger, the absolute certainty that he could beat Gaethje anywhere the fight went was something nobody had predicted. This wasn't the cautious game plan that the experts had mapped out. This was a fighter announcing to the world that he belonged at the highest level. The final moments of the fight were so intense, so back and forth, so completely unpredictable that even seasoned MMA veterans were admitting they had no idea who was going to win. Every exchange could have been the finish, every scramble could have ended with a submission, and every strike thrown had knockout power behind it. This was MMA at its absolute finest, showcasing exactly why this sport continues to surprise and amaze even the most knowledgeable observers.